Last Sunday we actually talked about, I've got to jump right into this, we actually talked about two Psalms that were happening when people would reflect upon the Passover. And the Psalms, and those two Psalms, and we talked about at the end, that's so that the reality of when you reflect back to what they were going through on the night of the Passover, the Psalm ended up with never, ever, ever will I believe that in the end tyrants will win in history. Never will I believe again that things will before they went through the pain of what would happen with Babylonia. There was prophets who came to the land, who saw things were going, who saw the religious problematic realities that was going on. And that's why that song, prescient. See, again, I've got to start using smaller words, sorry. But those song words are prescient this morning because, quite frankly, we are in the point that song in the middle asks, when did kindness become a problem? When did cruelty become the point? When did our inability to love one another, at least respect for one another, become an issue? And when that starts happening, the fear is, again, the inevitability of destruction. And so this is where the prophet Jeremiah, who's called the weeping prophet. Now, at some point, years ago, when I would say Jeremiah is the weeping prophet, they saw this as a person that doesn't have strength. But actually, there's some things you can look at that makes you cry. It just makes you cry. You get past the point of anger. You get past the point of disgust. You just cry. When did we become this? Cry. What does that mean we shall be? Cry when you look at children and say, what kind of world will they be growing in? It has nothing to do with our response, just our emotional reality of crying. And so Jeremiah is that crying prophet. He cries out. He writes psalms that simply says, I don't know. And then God says, and this is the beginning of the text, get up and go to the potter's house. Now, see, that one moment in the middle of his tears, in the middle of his distress, in the middle of his pain, I love God because one of the things about the Bible is not this kind of fairy tale book. No, it is not. It really is not. I know, some people preach it as that. But the Bible actually has folk who cry. They have folk who lose faith, find faith, leave faith, don't even know what faith is. The Bible has that kind of book. And in this point, we got a dude who was crying, and God says, get up. And when he says get up, we're thinking, oh, dude, this is going to be a great thing. This is actually going to be a sermon about everything going to be all right, right? No. It's just going to be an honest reality. He says, get up and go to the potter's house. There was another moment like that will happen in the New Testament. When on the night in which Jesus was betrayed, it's also a time when people are looking at things that look like they're going awry. Things that are looking at the reality is that the Roman Empire, the Greco-Roman world is against them, that in point of fact they will never win. And I don't know about you, now there's probably somebody in here that's feeling fat, fine, and happy. God bless you. But the rest of us are a little worried right now. And the rest of us can understand Jeremiah's position and the disciples' position. And we have to get up. And you got up this morning, you came to communion. And he says, get up and go to the potter's house. Now the pottery and potter house, again, I'm gonna move very quickly. So the reason I love to move very quickly, because anything you don't understand, I'm like, we cut that out. If anything you don't like, I'm like, oh yeah, you would have understood it if I had 10 more minutes. So I am free preaching this morning. You don't have to. I got an excuse built in right now. So the potter's house. He goes to the potter's house. Pottery is important. For it's fundamentally the way they preserve things. It's fundamentally the way they hold things. It's fundamentally the reality of the society itself. This potter becomes important, and it becomes so important that they have their own place that they do everything, and they do it old school. I know this won't shock you, but electricity wasn't invented yet. And I know it's going to shock you that doing things quickly. Again, and some of you have lived long enough, right now everything happens fast. Used to be not that way. It used to be that actually if you went to dinner, somebody had to start about 4 o'clock to get to 6 o'clock to get dinner. You understand, it used to be a time, a reality. Right now we have something called a microwave. I'm sorry, Curtis is a master chef, and if I say the word microwave, it's like cussing at him. But nevertheless, we have things like, and y'all don't know what a microwave is. None of y'all use it. Now, yeah, right. Okay, so we're used to doing things quickly. But that's not the reality of not only how not the world moves, your life will not move. You will always be impatient. It will always seem like this is taking forever. It will always seem like it should have been done yesterday, and it will always seem like whatever is happening should have already happened. The good news is when you look back, you'll go, it wasn't that long. But right now, it feels that way. And so it is that Jeremiah said, that's what doing a pottery was. It's not something that happens easily. It's actually something that takes time. You actually take this lump of clay, and you begin to mold it and move it and shape it until it becomes the image that you need. But then pottery now is about beauty, and for those of you who are in Tiburon and all these that have these wonderful museums, that's not what pottery was about. It was about practical stuff. And so the reason that it had to be shaped is not because it looked right, but because it served the purpose for which it was created. And if there was a problem, it was going to be a problem bigger than what it is. So when they began to mold and make it, he said, now go to the potter's house and look and tell me what you see. Well, I saw a man working with his hands to create something. Sounds pretty good now. Great prophecy. Ooh, I saw a man creating something. Maybe that means God's creating something. And then there's a problem in the script. And it says, and when that clay, and no matter what translation you use, when that clay became broken, messed up, and wrong in the potter's hands, it would be thrown back and started again. I didn't say it was broken because something happened to it, but literally in the hands, oh, how can I make this plain, especially in the small time I have, but I will tell you right now, God does not leave when things are difficult. It is not a sign that God is not there when you're crying. It's not a sign that God does not care when it's not working out. Because you can be in God's hands and still mess up and still become a mess. That's why I don't understand churches and people who are so judgmental, as if somehow if you really knew God, this wouldn't be happening. No, actually not true. I know God, and I keep on messing up. I may be getting better, but every time I think I could make it, I mess up again. In God's hands, I can be faithful and still mess up. I can do the right thing and still fall in the wrong way. I can be marred in the potter's hand. There is this reality that we think that if God was really God, life would be easier. Isn't that the reason you go to church? No, that's the reason you go to Las Vegas. That's what you're hoping to hit the numbers. But the reason I go to church is because I realize life is going to be life. And I know I used another urban phrase. Life is going to be lifing. You know things are going to happen. The issue is, how do you get through when life is lifing? How do you get through when you're marred in the master's hand? Or how do you get through a night in which you realize the Roman soldiers are after you and everything is falling apart in the master's hands. Now I got to edit the next couple of paragraphs and say that ultimately speaking, the answer is simply this. He does not say you get through because a magic God will come, snap his hands, and everything will be perfect. In fact, it's worse. It really is worse. I would have loved for God. Even that would have been a better answer than the one God gives. Because you understand that a way that you have to repair a clay that's in the wrong shape is you've got to tear it up and throw it away and begin again. Now this is the part, everybody, now the elders are saying, we got visitors, don't say this, but I'm going to say it. Some of the pain in our lives are about gains of our souls. Some of the pain that we go through is that we need in order to become who God wants us to become. Some of the reasons that you and I can stay in our relationships now is because we've messed up in the past. And we caused pain, and that pain taught us now how to stand in the future. Some of the reasons that we have completely fallen and pay consequences and take accountability is so that we can become something better than we thought we could be. In fact, did you see with the end of the song? I saw y'all. I saw y'all at the end of the song going, they ain't read that part. You know, everybody preached on the Potter's house. They preached about the bottom, whatever. That last verse, they didn't do it. And by the way, I'm coming at you and I'm going to destroy you. You like, hey, that in the Bible? That ain't how I heard the story. It's because preachers, and I appreciate it. It would have been easier for me to just completely not talk about that reality of that all that God, that everything's going to be great, God's going to redo you, but it's going to be painful. But the pain, and I don't have time to preach it, will always be in God gain. The pain in God will always be in God gain. You see, when you come to this table, you come to the Potter's house, you may not hear what you want to hear, but you will hear one thing, that God is still God in control, and what's happening in your life, in my life, in our life, is by the grace and the power of God. And I brought receipts. How many times you thought it was the end, and it was just another beginning? How many times you thought you wasn't going to make it? In fact, those of you who were in the AA, I'm not going to call you out, y'all realize until you got to the bottom, you didn't understand how high you could go. But if you hadn't got to the bottom, you would never be able to get to the top. The reality is that in this nation right now, we are being broken. And by the way, I'm not endorsing brokenness. I still don't like it. And if I were God, I would find a better plan. Just saying. Just saying. And in the next few weeks, now this is where I slip in this announcement. In the next few weeks, we're going to have several politicians who meet me on the road and they want me to endorse them. And I always go, no, I'm not going to endorse you. But if you come to church on Sunday morning, I'll pray for you. So when they announce, I know a couple of them are coming and I pray for you. I just want you to know, that's because I don't endorse you, but I will pray for you. Because, Lord, I wouldn't want your job at your time, because you may not be a part of the making us, you may be the part of the breaking us. The reason I can stand for politicians who are left and right and whatever, because you may be a part of the breaking as well as the making, but you're still in God's hands. See, the reality is those that clay never got out of God's hands. It's never happening in spite of God. It's happening with God being in control. That night when they were listening and Jesus said, and one of you shall betray them, they all looked and said, not me, and oh God, I don't want to go through that. But had he not gone through that night, there would be no cross. Had there not been a cross, There would be no ability to understand that grace abounds even in my worst situation. Had it not been for the breaking of that night, we would never be the creation that's in this room. Can you imagine growing up without someone in your life saying, when you're broken, I love you anyway? Can you imagine the God who will simply be left with you have to sacrifice and make it better, and only by becoming perfect can I love you? Can you imagine that God? All right, some of you don't have to imagine it. You've been to some of them churches. You know what I'm saying. You know, you have to come every Sunday. In fact, there are places in America right now that if you mess up, you got to come before the church. You got to confess. This just means continual. Because every week you're going to have something new and you'll never get right. Can you imagine being stuck with a God like that? That is the God that is in over half the Bible. But when Jesus comes, because of that night, because he broke it, because he allowed the pain to come in and reconstituted it, he says, now you are free. Now you're free to understand, regardless of what goes on, that God can love you anyway. Now you are free. Now act like you're free. Stop judging other people and love them nevertheless. Stop telling everybody that you got to be perfect, because perfection is not something that you were ever created to be. I got to stop. So for some of you, that's a new thought. You thought I should be perfecting and always get to perfect. Stop it. You ain't going to make it. You're perfecting because you love somebody. You don't do things. In the last Bible study, we did that. We looked at that. You don't do things because you're trying to perfect it. You do things out of gratitude for God, who allowing you to not have to live perfect. The reason that I do the right thing is because I know God loves me enough that even if I do the wrong thing, it'll be all right. That's why. And so ultimately speaking, at this table and at this moment in life, when everything tells you that you're broken and that it's broken, you're like, nah. I've been to the potter's house. Nah. I've been to the communion table. And I know that the breaking will always have a purpose. And I know that I'm going to say that you left or right or center in your crate. By the way, I'm trying to edit here, but I can't miss this point. Some of those crazy friends, you know, the ones that drive you crazy, the ones that actually got no sense whatsoever, the one you're sitting there and go, I can't believe they even said that. They may be blessing you because in knowing them, you know who you are not. You also know who you can become. And if you watch them, you also know the danger of being them. So you understand the breaking and the reality of see how, you think I just threw that one in. I ain't had time to preach you right now, but I want you to know that 11 disciples, there was a dude named Judas who was at the table. And sometimes the Judas in your life is as important as the other 11 who do get it right. So stop hating those who you disagree with. Stop hating those who you don't like. I get it because they're irritating. They're just irritating. I mean, you know, I can give you some theological, sociological, ontological reality, but they just irritate me. And when irritating people come, just think, bless your heart. That's a southern flavor. You are just part of the breaking. You are just part of the process that we might be going through. Because quite frankly, there may be more people that now see the consequences of what it could be that allows some people to wake up and do something different. Now, Ray's going to preach here in a few weeks, and raised a 36-year-old preacher. She's actually, I'm going to tell you, she always said, she's a 36-year-old radical lesbian feminist. And she, in the middle of the election, this is a little off topic, but it's actually on topic. She actually introduced me to a phrase that I then used in this pulpit that got me in a little trouble. But I never said it. I just said the letters. It was F around and find out. Her generation was saying that. That she says, oh, you're not going to believe it until you make it happen and then find out the consequences of it. And then when you find the consequences of it, all the stuff I did was not enough. But as soon as you find out, you'll change. Now, I thought that was a terrible thing, but I'm a little older than her. But now I understand what she was saying in her theological reality. Okay, she didn't think it was theology, she just said that's what she said. But she was saying that sometimes you have to understand that people have to be broken before they can see the truth. It has to affect them personally before they get how it affects other people. We have the myth of empathy. That's because all of you, not the folk online, I'm kidding y'all. But all of you and all of us, we value empathy. But there's folk who don't value empathy. And they won't get it until they F around and find out. Boy, I'm going to get in trouble with this one. That effing around is God's breaking. Y'all get it now? Sometimes I have to put it where you can get it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what they were looking at, and that's what they were looking at the table. They were looking at the table, and they didn't understand it. But after that night, when they went through what they went through, they found out how God is. The breaking of America at the end, when people come back, they will find out that America is a better nation than we thought. After all the problems, it still was a blessing. They F around and find out. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble again. We'll let people know that this Christ and this Christianity is something that we should value, and that there is important to somebody to know there is a cross and there is a redemption. The F around and find out is when people cry. They thought they won, and they realized they've won something that wasn't a victory. They've only won more pain. Now you see, God says, I'm coming for you because they need to F around and find out. But when they do, I will remake you again. When they do, DEI may have gone through some stuff, but wait till they F around and find out, and then they'll realize it's not a program, it's a way of life. Oh, they may think that being able to simply call somebody and scapegoat somebody, that was the way to go. But when they F around and find out if they scapegoat somebody, it also hurts their family, then they'll understand what family values really are. When they F around and find out, when the breaking is over, God will bring forth. So yeah, we need a revolution. And there will be blood. But after the blood, there will also be redemption. So come to the table. Come to the table with joy. Come to the table with joy. And some of y'all are looking like, good Lord, this was short term and I want to hear the wrong one. I know I kind of went on more than I want. It's hard to cut this one. And I didn't want to leave you with the wrong impression that this is just a cussing pastor. I want you to understand that this was theologically what God is saying and what God means. And what God means is that we and you, whatever happening in your life, whatever hurt, whatever pain, God is in it. And God's going to bless you through it. Everyone bow their heads for a moment as we What's the hymn that what are we going to sing afterwards? Y'all, hello, look at me. What are you going to sing afterwards? Okay, thank you. As the choir are getting back, hold on for a second. I want everybody to bow your heads while go ahead and y'all get on back to the, go ahead, brother. It's a coordination issue. Praise God. I want, when you're singing this song, to reality is, I decided to follow Jesus. Y'all heard it as an altar call. I want you to hear it as a cry of your heart. I've decided not to be discouraged. I've decided not to let life hurt me to the extent that I can never move on. And I've decided that every negative in my life, God's going to use it for me. That's what I mean when I say I've decided to follow Jesus. My cross is not my end. There is a resurrection coming. And as I saw my beautiful wife come in today, who is a chaplain in the hospital, every single day, people are in the hospital bed. They have to make a decision to follow Jesus and believe. Put the words up. Put the words up. And let's go.